Welcome to Collecting in the year 2025. Oh my God, you're collecting video games in the year 2025? Are you crazy? This panel is about how to start, how to keep going, and how to quit. And we'll get to all of those in their turn. Hi, my name is Chris Kohler. I've been collecting video games since the 90s. You know, I don't really count buying stuff when I was a kid, but when I started like buying and keeping stuff when I was a teenager, I feel like that counts. I was in the video games media for like a quarter century, and I dug up a copy of On America magazine on the shelf, one of the vendors, and I'm like, I think I got a review in this, and he's like, what? And I'm like, oh, here's my review of Mario Party 2. I reviewed Mario Party 2 years old this year. And I'm currently working at a game developer called Digital Eclipse, where we make collections and interactive documentary type games all about game history. So what I wanted to do today is I see a lot of panels about video game collecting, and they generally make me mad, and I want to talk back at some of the sort of the assumptions and maybe even some of the advice that's given to beginning collectors, because I feel like, especially now, a lot of that stuff we need to maybe change some of our perceptions about how to go about doing this. So you may be wondering right now, Chris, how are you doing? I'm fine, thank you. 2025 has been a really busy year. A couple of things that I'm most proud of professionally. Our Gold Master series of interactive documentaries are finally available physically. That's The Making of Karateka, about Jordan Mechner's Karateka. Llamasoft, the Jeff Minter story about the wacky, sheepy games of Jeff Minter. And then, of course, Tetris Forever, about a small game called Tetris. You can now buy those physically around the world. And then later on this month, we're releasing Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. Finally, the definitive compilation of arcade and home and handheld Mortal Kombat games, including many that have never been re-released before. October 30th, please buy it. These physical editions were pre-orders from Limited Run that are coming out later on down the line. This panel is about game collecting. This panel is not about the act of the hobby of playing old video games for fun. This is also one of my hobbies. I'm not as into it as that guy, but this is also one of the hobbies that I have, is playing old video games. Great. It's like it's a different hobby. I enjoy this hobby, but I'm really talking about the hobby that is, so forget about fun. We're just talking about, I'm talking about the other hobby of like accumulating stuff in my house. Like not necessarily buying games that I want to play, but just the fun of just buying video games and putting them on the shelf and looking at them. I found this image by searching for video game collection. It was the 5th result on Google, and I was stopped in my tracks. I'm like, why is this man so sad? He's so sad. He spilled his coffee. Like whatever's going on with whatever used to be in that coffee mug is on the ground. He's just so depressed in front of this. How are you that depressed when you own every game for the Action Max right there? Like, how can you be sad? I was inspired by this picture. Literally, I saw this picture, and I'm like, well, I'm putting it in the presentation, and I'm going to go downstairs, and I'm going to go, because I love collecting video games, I'm going to go downstairs to my video game wall, and I'm going to get I'm going to take my mug, my promotional mug from the release of the game Slaughter Sport, aka Mondu's Fight Palace, aka Tongue of the Fat Man. And I'm going to take a picture with my mug with nothing in it in front of my wall of video games. I'm going to be smiling because I love game collecting. I'm having a great time collecting. I'm here in Portland. I'm buying video games. I'm talking with my friends about it. I'm just having a grand old time collecting video games. Actually, it turns out that video game collecting isn't fun anymore. And retro video game collecting sucks. And it has been ruined, ironically, by YouTube. The very website that we are looking at right now has ruined video game collecting for everybody. Except for, I don't know, man. I was here Friday, I was here Saturday. I feel like I was having a good time. I think maybe retro video game collecting is not ruined, no matter what these men on the internet say. So it's okay. So if you're thinking, I'm going to start video game collecting, it's fine. You can start video game collecting. Don't listen to the people who say that the good days are totally over. Like, you're doing this for yourself, you know? And so here is, and I've read a lot of articles about video game collecting. I've watched a lot of videos about video game collecting, because I don't know about you, but like when I'm not like actively at a convention buying video games, I'm thinking about, oh, it'd be so cool if I was at a convention buying video games right now. I think I'll go watch a YouTube video about it. I've seen a lot of panel discussions, as I said, and the past few years, you know, especially as prices are getting higher and higher and higher, I see one piece of advice that always sort of starts off a lot of these panels, and it being given out a lot. The piece of advice that I always see is people say, first, you should pick a focus. And the idea is that before you buy anything, rather than be scattershot about it and be like, oh, this game is cool, that game's cool, that game's cool, you should decide what your collecting focus is going to be and then narrow down, just concentrate on that and just ignore everything else. Focus on NES, don't buy TurboGrafx. Focus on Genesis, don't buy Nintendo, that sort of thing. I do not think this is good advice. The reason I think that this advice is often shared in articles and panels is that, okay, veteran collectors who have been doing this for decades probably did hit a point in their collecting when they looked at their collection and they said, there's certain games in my collection that I like, and then there's a lot of games that I have collected that I don't really like. And they find themselves naturally focusing on one area of collecting over other stuff, but then they kind of see like, oh, but I bought all this stuff and maybe I'm not feeling as good about it. Well, the problem is they naturally arrived at that conclusion and at those preferences that they have through the gradual, experiential process of collecting and buying things and having things. That knowledge of where is my focus, what do I like the best, it really comes from that experience and the actual sort of act of collecting day by day, year by year. You can't shortcut it. So that's why I think it's kind of bad advice to tell people to do something that you acquired through experience that they don't have the experience to understand, like, well, what does that really mean for me? So I'm not just saying what's bad advice. What is my, I think, good advice for starting collecting in 2025? And it's first, buy what you like. I know this sounds crazy, but there must be something out there, if you're just starting to collect stuff, there must be something that you actually want to have, like a thing that you think would be really cool if you owned. You know, within reason, if you can economically do it, like just buy that thing. Like you don't need to sit around waiting to randomly find that thing in a thrift store. You should buy the thing that you think is gonna be something that like brings you that happiness that you like. Maybe what you like, it already falls into a sort of a narrow band of focus. Maybe you only really want to buy Sega Genesis games. Great, I'm not saying go buy, you have to be scattershot if you don't want to be. What I'm saying is, don't say, oh, this game is really cool and I love it, but it's not a TurboGrafx game, and my focus is only TurboGrafx, or my focus is only N64, so I can't buy this. But I have to buy, you know, this CIB copy of Wheel of Fortune on the Nintendo 64. I have to get it because, you know, that's my focus. Like, that's what I'm going for. There are people like this. Don't stress too much about the deals and scoring great deals at first. You know, it's better to, well, I spent a little bit more, but it's on something that I really like, than to get a good deal on something that fundamentally you don't care about. Because again, I see this a lot. It's like, got a great deal on this. It's like, do you like it? Once the feeling of I got a great deal is gone, and it goes away, then it's just you and a thing you don't like, which is now your responsibility and in your house. I have another contrarian piece of advice. Many of these panels, including ones that I have been on, including even this one, will have some discussion about flea markets, garage sales, thrift stores, etc. Because, well, 20 years ago, that's where you were able to find a ton of video games, at garage sales, flea markets, and thrift stores. And for the most part, mostly, not entirely, but mostly, they're gone. They're gone from those places. And that's not necessarily because other people are buying them all before you can get them. It's because the cycle is, you know, people buy this stuff in the 80s and 90s for themselves, and then it goes up in the attic for 10 years, and then it comes out of the attic and it goes into the thrift store, and then it goes to, you know, basically collectors. That cycle, that stuff has cycled out, and that stuff is not going back to those places. And or sometimes, I mean, gosh, like when I do go to thrift stores or flea markets or even garage sales, you know, people are selling things for the same price that you buy them at on eBay anyway or more. So it's like, I'm not saying never go to these places again, but I'm saying if you're just going to thrift stores and if you're just going to flea markets and you're finding nothing, it's like there are better ways. And one of the things that I will really tell people is, where I find a lot of video games today is places where I know that there will be a lot of video games. And I don't just mean like, you know, for high prices. I mean good, solid deals. I'm from the Bay Area. We have various stores in the Bay Area, like the Retro Fix or Save and Continue that are down around the San Jose area. They, every month, 2 months or so, will do swap meets. And they'll say, I mean, the store called Save and Continue is just like, free table, just come down and sell your stuff outside the table at our store. And it's great for them because it gets people in. But then you start, and also I wanted to say in Portland, I'm missing this by a couple of weeks, but you know, a couple of weeks ago there was something very similar that looked pretty cool. It was like in like a barcade. I don't know if anybody went there, but like in like a barcade type place, hobbyist sellers just putting games on tables and selling them. And you can really catch great deals there because you're not necessarily buying from, it's like you're not buying from like a mom at a garage sale, but you're also not buying from a store. Now, you're not necessarily even buying from a professional seller, you're kind of buying from a collector like yourself. These are just, they're like gaming markets or pop-ups or conventions like the one that we're at. Even some stores, they're target-rich environments. There are so many games packed into these places that you can still catch deals there. And that's really where I find I just get the best deals today. It's like, no, it's not $1, but it's like it might be catching $100 or $200 item for significantly less than that. And in many cases, the cheapest way to get a game just might be sniping an eBay auction these days. Yeah, so think about that. Why are we where we are right now? The prices of games are set by supply and demand. And somebody will always try to tell you, well, it's not just supply and demand, because no, it's just supply and demand. It's not supply, demand, and you know, PSA grading, and it's not supply, demand, and YouTubers. You know, it's straight up just function of supply and demand. And I think one of the issues is that nobody knows what supply means in this case. You always hear people saying, well, why is Pokemon Emerald so expensive? They made millions of them. It must be X, you know, it must be something else. Well, A, it's supply and demand. It's not supply or demand. But B, the definition of supply is not how many were made. It's not how many are left. It's how many are currently available on the market. There's a lot of potential supply that's out there that is not available for people, and it's here. It's in my game room personally. No, it's in everybody's game rooms. Everybody's holding on to stuff. There's tons of copies of Pokemon Emerald, but they're in people's houses. They're in collectors' houses, and right now, not a lot of people, which, you know, will change over time, but right now not a lot of people even want to sell. There's just no price at which somebody's even considering, you know, selling a game that they have because, you know, with the way things are going, people are like, when am I going to get a chance to have this again? Classic games have they have a supply-demand problem. They have problems. You know, there's a big demand issue, of course, because you can see that right out on the you know, show floor where there's tons of people, but there's also there's problems on both ends. But you know, in the end, it's like don't stress too much about it. So much of what you're going to learn about collecting just comes from the act of doing it. So just start small, start within, you know, definitely stay within your means. There are definitely people out there who will try to get you to spend more than you can afford. But you know, just, it's fine. Just start and then look back 10 years later and you'll say, oh, okay, well, you'll probably say, well, I'm glad I started when I did. So this is now back to, okay, I started collecting, and now I am maybe starting to feel like everything's been ruined, and it's not as fun as it was, and Do I keep going? Does it make sense to keep going? If you feel that the whole hobby of video game collecting has been ruined, my opinion is that you personally are probably burnt out. And I have not scientifically researched this in any way, but I believe that if you look at the behavior of people or the activity that they are participating in terms of collecting, people who are really burnt out and really depressed about the state of the game collecting hobby, I feel like we would find a person who, in many cases, is just buying. And it's just like the only activity is going out, finding a game, buying it, putting it into the house, and that's kind of it. I think that if personally all I was doing was just buying, that I might feel really burnt out too. Even if everything was $1, it would just get old, you know? With prices going up, you could also sell some things. One piece of advice that, again, you hear in these panels a lot is, if you see a lot of games, if there's a whole box of video games and you can get it really cheaply, don't cherry pick it. You can just buy the whole box and then take out the stuff you don't want, don't need, and then sell that, individually, and hopefully even make up the price of the box of games that you just got, so the stuff you kept out of the box is free. I think it's a great piece of advice. It's basically how I collect. But here's the problem. So, you take this advice. All right, great. I'm gonna buy, when I see a bunch of games being sold, I'm gonna buy that bunch of games, and I'm gonna sell, however, the stuff that I don't want, I'm gonna keep the rest. Now I'm getting games, for a lot cheaper in the end, right? Well, then the problem becomes, I have a ton of games that I got in those lots that I held on to, and it grows and grows and grows. And then, I think that starts to, give you that feeling of what do I do now? Here is my issue. This is the way that I used to decide if I got a game. How do I decide if I'm going to keep this or send this on? Is it a video game? Some things are not video games. If yes, do I have this already? If yes, sell it. But is it a variant of something that I don't have? Maybe I do need to keep it anyway. Okay, don't have one. I don't have one. Great, keep it. Put it in the shelf. Put it in the closet. Forget I have it. This was untenable. This does not work. This is how I am trying. I'm not going to say this is how I am deciding all the time. I'm going to say this is how I am trying my best to live my life now. Is it a video game? Still have to ask this question. Some things are still not video games. Yes. I was downstairs in the room where all the video games are. And my wife walked in on me looking at a video game. and she's like, hey, are you just looking at a video game? And I'm like, yeah, this game's really cool. Put it back on the shelf, look at another one. She's like, you're just like, I'm just admiring my collection. She's like, okay, weirdo, but I realized that there were certain games, there were certain things in my collection, and for me it's a lot of things because I like a lot of different things, but when I walk up to it in my house, I pick it up off the shelf and I look at it, and I cool, I put it back, and it's like I feel my mood ding up a little bit, and it's like, yeah, that thank you, Marie Kondo, that sparks joy. And if it doesn't, and if I look at it and I think this is a burden, or it doesn't just make me feel, wow, this is great, it's like, that has to go. Now, I'm not saying I took every single thing that doesn't spark joy and ditched it all at once, but once the kind of light bulb went off, it's like, oh, this is actually going to make it a lot easier to, get rid of some stuff that I feel like I'm keeping for a reason that doesn't involve my own personal happiness. And here's the thing. Well, then you have to ask, what about set collecting? Because I'm really enjoying set collecting. It's fun to figure out every single game that ever came out for the Nintendo 64 and then go check off the list. And it's a fun activity. It's a fun activity. It can be fun, but importantly, it's not the only way to collect video games. I mean, video game collecting does not necessarily mean that you've got a list of every game for a system. You just have to do that. It's getting more and more difficult these days, but certainly, I mean, if you want to do that, I mean, definitely make sure you really love that system enough to make sure that as you're acquiring that Wheel of Fortune for N64, that you feel good as you're doing it. And I would say really be realistic about your ability to complete that set with the resources that you have. I have never gotten into I'm going to finish this set of games where the final games are more money than I have or would be ever willing to spend on something because until you complete that set, all you've got is an incomplete set, that's making you feel like something is missing rather than you accomplished it. So that's kind of how I would approach this. I wanted to talk a little bit about, there was a documentary series called Nintendo 64 Quest. This was a 6-8 episode something documentary series that premiered this year. Basically the conceit was, one of these guys goes to a bunch of video game stores and he tries in 14 days of buying to buy from zero, get the full set of Nintendo 64 games just loose. They had previously done a movie called Nintendo Quest, where they tried to do the same thing with the NES, the 8-bit NES library, and they failed. And a lot of the learnings from that was that they started out with a lot of assumptions about what was actually rare and what was not, and got blindsided by the fact that while they were very, very enthusiastic about tracking down a little Samson and tracking down stadium events and stuff like that, there's just a lot of games that for that platform that aren't expensive, but they're rare and you don't see them. And that is also kind of what's fun about that set collecting. For Nintendo 64 Quest, they vastly over-prepared. They started with a budget that was much higher than what you would actually need to get a full Nintendo, to just go on eBay and just buy the full N64 set. They started with more money than that, so they weren't going to run out of money. The weird thing that happened was they got the whole set in a few days. And the reason why they got the whole set in a few days, and they don't really explore this too much in the movie, you hear multiple people say like, oh yeah, we have those rare N64 games. Somebody completed the whole set and then they traded them all in. And so other people were essentially doing the same quest, as it were, that they were, and at the end, they were kind of like, I don't actually want any of these games, and they sold them back to stores. They made money, lost money, I don't know. Selling stuff doesn't have to mean that you're totally done collecting. I mean, it's not like buy it, and then get to the point where you're like, can't take it anymore, get rid of it all. It can be, and I wonder if the people who are buying and selling and buying and selling and buying and selling constantly are the happier, collectors, because it's not just money out, but it's also money in, and it's like you are, no matter where the prices are going generally, like there's some benefit for you. Honestly, I mean, I really would give people the advice if you're thinking of like, well, I've got some doubles, I think I might sell them, like, get your feet wet with a low impact or a low stress, way of trying to sell stuff, like those gaming markets or something where you could like potentially get a free table or a low cost table and devote a day or a weekend to try to sell some of your stuff. You might like it, and honestly, like if you're thinking like, oh, I don't know if I could really sell this thing, I gotta tell you, there's almost nothing that I've sold where I even remember it. Like I find that I sort of forget about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I even had that. Try it out. But however, selling is hard. It's a lot harder to get rid of stuff than it was to buy it. Buying it is super, super easy. Selling it, especially if you want to do it the right way, is very time consuming, which is why it's good to get some experience with it under your belt while you're still collecting, because it all is gonna get sold at some point. The other day, I came across a post on Reddit, and it really, really stopped me in my tracks, like even more so than that guy with the collection. I'm not gonna make you read all this, but game collecting, wait, the post, was it worth it? Lately, I've been wondering if hoarding games has been worth it. I have a physical game collection of around 8,000 games. I am 53 now and have a heart condition that resulted in a triple bypass 15 years ago. It just makes me wonder if owning all these games really means anything. I think it probably doesn't. I have 3 kids, 1 20 and twins who are 17. I figure when they inherit my stuff, they'll probably just dump it all at bargain basement prices. I've talked to them about it before, but it's not really a fun topic. I don't know where, hey kids, you wanna talk about dad dying? Like, I don't know where to start. I guess overall, I might say, you need to be really enjoying what you are doing now. Game collecting is not some life's labor where you put in a bunch of work and then there's a big satisfying ending at the end of it all and it all becomes worth it. This is a hobby that you are doing that is supposed to bring you enjoyment now, today, during this panel, while you're doing it. This is not like I'm gonna go to law school and be like, well, it's hard now, but I'm gonna grind it out and then I'll, No, it doesn't mean anything that you own these games. It doesn't mean anything. I think it probably doesn't mean anything. Yeah, no, it doesn't, you're right. Here are some, I would like to share with you a list. Here are some things that in the past, people have asked me if not outright told me that my video game collection is this. Oh, your video game collection is da-da-da. No, let me assure you, my video game collection is not an investment. It's a real bad one, if compared to literally every other way to invest your money. Put it in a mutual fund. My investment is not my retirement. That is called a 401k. That is a different thing. My investment is not my kid's college fund. That is called a 529 plan. That is a different thing. There's money in that for the kid's college. My collection is not future family heirlooms. I don't want my grandma's Hummel figurines. My grandkids are not gonna want my copy of Flintstones Prize at Dinosaur Peak. And my collection is not the beginning of a museum. I'm not going around saying, yeah, I'm gonna take my whole collection and I'm gonna start Chris Kohler Museum. It's very, very hard to start a museum. It costs a lot of money. You can go talk to the guys at the National Video Game Museum. They're here about like how hard you have to go through to start a museum. And then even then, a museum is not just a big old pile of video games. Sorry. My video game collection is my big cool pile of video games. That's all it is. It is. That's fine. It's my personal stuff that I think is cool. And so much of, that latter part of collecting, I think is coming to grips with the reality that your pile of stuff is your pile of stuff. And it's not meaningful to other people as it is to you because it's an extension of your likes and your personality that you have curated. Your kids don't necessarily, I guess we should say necessarily, maybe some of your kids want your stuff. I see kids out there that are definitely going like, no, but it's only like 10 of them. My jaw had already dropped when I was just reading that Reddit post. And I think when I saw this comment, this is when my jaw became entirely detached from my body and hit the floor. This is just a commenter on the post, but if you believe your kids will be irresponsible with your collection and sell them for bargain prices, I would say leave it to someone else in the family, like a spouse, as a guarantor so that, oh my God, dude! My brother in Christ, irresponsible, is dying, leaving 8,000 video games to your kids who you are already on notice that they do not want and calling it their inheritance. Because the guy had said in the post, when my kids inherit my stuff, that's not inheritance, that's work. That is work. Who has had, it's like I have seen, relatives pass away and it's just such a process of just going through all of this stuff. And even if your kids want the video games, hello, like, you know, people who are older generally live in bigger houses than their kids. You know, your kids might not have the space or the money to pay to store it all. And when you die, I mean, you have like estate taxes and you've got probate depending on the state that you live in, and you're like, all that kind of stuff kicks in, and like, your relatives do not necessarily have the time, space, ability, wherewithal to just inherit your big pile of video games and then sell it, and then if they do, to then sell it game by game for maximum money. And it's like, they can't do that. They're not gonna do that. Like, if you want maximum money, you know, get it, you like start getting that maximum money now. Then you have money, and then the money goes to them, and that's a real inheritance. That's actual inheritance. Well, I'll donate it to the Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. Well, look, folks, here's a picture of the Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. It's one of the glass cases that they have, you know, talking about the history of, you know, video games. What do you see? I see, I don't know, like one copy of Pac-Man, one copy of Mule, so they got that one, Famicom, so they're set on Famicoms, Vectrex 3D Imager. But you know what you don't see is like a glass case full of, oh, here's every video game ever released on the Super Nintendo loose. It's like, nobody wants to look at that, and they come to a museum, and then the Strong actually did, I have a little knowledge here, because the Strong actually did start out with their collection that they have in their museum of buying a lot of games, and then they start bringing in, because a museum is, yes, it's a place people can walk around and view the collections, but it's also a place for researchers to come and do research. And the researchers started coming in, and they're like, okay, what games do you need to play? And the researchers are like, none. We played them on the internet. Like they're like, we want the behind the scenes materials, we want design documents, we want company documents, we want all that kind of stuff so that our research can kind of go beyond the world of the game. But as far as the games, they were kind of set. I don't even think the Strong like takes donations from like, they take like institutional donations, when like Electronic Arts is like, hey, we've got every game we ever made, you know, you want that? Yeah, sure, okay. But they're not going through like a thrift store digging through, you know, somebody's like sort of, you know, dusty donation box in most cases. I'm not saying in all cases. But again, if we think museums might want your stuff, like probably a good time to donate would be now, like while you're around. The other thing is, you know, a lot of people, you know, we're all getting older at approximately the same rate. So as people start to divest themselves of their collection, it's a big sell-off that kind of affects a lot of different collectors, and so you might have trouble finding somewhere where it would go in general. I don't even have, a slide for this next thing, well, okay, I'll go through this next slide first. I'm going to ad-lib a little bit here. You know who wants your collection? This dude from earlier in the video. The only you know, people who can be counted on to have the capital, the wherewithal, the desire to buy somebody's whole collection is somebody whose full-time business it is to, you know, purchase collections and piece it out. The best way to get rid of 8,000 games is to sell them to somebody who actually has the ability to purchase 8,000 games at once. And then even if you came to me and said, I'll give you my 8,000 games for $1 each, I don't think I would do it. And also, it's a hell of a lot of video games to have to deal with. It's like, I can't do it as I go to conventions twice a year, you know, fun time, like, right? So remember, your collection is your collection. It's an extension of you. It doesn't fit on somebody else as a full collection. The way that this stuff moves on is it gets split up to other people who each want one individual item because they're building their own personally curated collection. So the thing I was going to ad-lib is, yesterday I was speaking with Kelsey Lewin, who's the head of the most famous video game store owner in the world, and she was, you know, runs Pink Gorilla, and she was saying, for the first time in Pink Gorilla's long storied history, they are starting to turn some people away who want to trade games because they're just kind of loaded up on certain things. And this doesn't, I'm not saying sell your video games, it's all over. I'm saying, like, just understand that there are going to be some times where people are, right now, like a lot of people I think are selling collections, and you may find yourself unable to even sell anything. And then some might end up, at Goodwill or whatever if stores are not in a position to take it. So, just be aware of, the fact that demand and supply and everything and people's desire to own stuff is shifting all of the time, and that the future that you're considering might not be, the future is not guaranteed in any way. So how to quit is sort of similar to what we talked about, how to continue, except you just keep going with it. Number one, get real. Have a realistic outlook on what your collection is and what it is not. Does it spark joy? What sparks joy to you? What makes you feel happy when you look at it? What does not? I'm not saying go cold turkey and sell everything right now, but quitting can be quitting something that is not making you feel good and concentrating more on something that is. Selling can be fun. You might find out if you've never sold something that you really enjoyed selling it. You might find you really like the money, and And the other thing is, it doesn't mean saying goodbye to the community. There's a lot of people out there on the vendor floor who are either buying and selling, and maybe they're not even really collecting themselves anymore, but they're still very much a part of the collecting community. They're still having a great time, in the community. It's like I think that this sometimes does happen too, where maybe people watch a YouTube video and they're like, this seems like a cool community of people that I want to be involved in. You don't have to spend a dime to be involved. There's no cover charge, to sort of being in the retro game community. And just bear in mind that it's all gonna get sold eventually, either by you or by somebody else. And ultimately, it's best if you have that control of how that sale goes down, and quite frankly, if you reap the benefits of it yourself instead of somebody else. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So thank you all very much. We have a couple of minutes for questions, if anybody has a question, and it isn't just running for the door. Yeah. So is there, maybe there's no roving microphone or audience mic or anything like that, but if you yell your question at me, somebody raise their hand very quickly in the back there, maybe, yeah.
Is there anything in your collection that you would consider a grail, like your holy piece, centerpiece?
Yes, next question. There's some stuff that, that they can bury me with. But again, it's very personal, right? You there?
So, as someone who has lost 2 family members recently and had to go through their stuff, and for us, the stuff that meant many things to them didn't mean nearly as much to us. Yeah. It is a hard thing to, it's more of a statement than a question, but it's a hard thing to go through that and be like, oh, this is worth this is worth trash, and so on, because this meant something more to them. And that's the same way with game collecting. Like, you said it exactly right, like, the stuff that we care about, that we find so cool, our kids or family members would be like, 25 cents, garage sale. So.
Yeah. If just in case this doesn't come through in the video, this gentleman was talking about how he recently had some family members pass, and they had to go through their things that were very precious to them, and just making the point that and again, we're all here at the video game convention. It's very easy to get into the mindset of well, everybody loves video games, or this is why would anybody look at this and think that this is trash? How could it and again, things get donated to Goodwill, and people are like, how could someone donate this? It's it's real easy. I donate stuff to Goodwill all the time that I think people are probably like, how could he possibly donate this? And it's cause it's gotta go, because it has to go. Maybe it's just all kinds of stuff that my kids don't use anymore, and it's but then and again, I think I jokingly mentioned Hummel figurines at the beginning of all of this, and all these collectibles that our grandparents collected, and really felt that there was a huge store of value there, but still didn't want to actually attempt to sell them. It's your video games or grandma's collector plates, It's, again, especially if you are buying the video game equivalent of collector plates, things that are manufactured in very large quantities, to appeal to collectors. It's like everybody's buying them, everybody's keeping them sealed, everybody's putting them on the shelf. So again, do you like it? Does it make you happy to look at it? Awesome. Are you looking at that as this is my retirement fund? That may not work out for you. Somebody in the front had, okay.
Yeah,
You were dressed as Mario, and then you...
65. The Reddit guy, I can relate to it, and he is definitely a collector. He said he had 3 kids, one and a set of twins, so he had a spare.
Good shot. Yeah, exactly. And again, just to be clear, I don't have any animosity towards this random person who wrote this Reddit thread. If anything, my emotional reaction to it is probably because it sort of resonates with things that I may have felt in my past, you know what I mean? Very similarly about the collection, like I was doing something, and I just really feel like it's healthy to understand that it's okay to not be moving towards some noble goal with a video game collection, and that it's just your stuff that you like. Back there?
Any recommendations on how you're tracking your collection?
I recommend tracking your collection somehow. I use Google Sheets that I build mostly because I'm not necessarily tracking the same things other people are. And I have certainly found that when I track my collection, I make less dumb mistakes. And if you want to come to booth 501, you can buy some of the games that I accidentally bought twice because I wasn't tracking that collection. Thanks. Okay, I think they're stopping me. So thank you all very, very much. Thanks.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and here are a few more videos for you to check out.